Good morning. Oh, I am digging this message series. My name's Michael. I'm one of the pastors here, and it's an honor to continue on this message series called Characters, where we're taking a look at different people in the Bible, and we're trying to answer three questions. Who are they? How do they connect with Jesus? And what do they have to do with you and me today, right? That'd be really helpful, wouldn't it? And today's character, her name's Rachel. And Rachel's this amazing character in the Bible. She is the one of four wives of this guy named Jacob. We looked at Jacob last week. And she's the favorite wife of the four. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, like, is the Bible condoning polygamy? If you read their story, the answer is completely no. I mean, nothing goes well for this family as he's got these four wives and things like that, and there's fighting going on and all that. The fact that he has a favorite wife is the downfall of the whole work of polygamy. But what we do get to see in Rachel, in her life, is her way of going about wanting and desiring to have these children. She desires to have children, and that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to want to bring life in the world and want to nurture these young ones and grow them up into adults so that they can leave your house one day, right? But it's a good thing, but what we find out is that good thing and the way in which she goes about it ends up turning into a bad thing because it becomes this only thing that can give her honor, give her a sense of success and worth, right? So interestingly, a good thing can be a bad thing when it becomes the only thing. A good thing can be a bad thing when it becomes the only thing. And as we look at her life, even though it's going to be very focused on her desire to have kids, I think we can put anything into that slot that we hold as so important. The thing that we measure our own worth or our success by. Anything we can put in there. And just to give you an example, for those of us that have graduated from high school and we've gone off and living our life, I want you to just kind of think about for a second. When you go back to your high school reunion, provided that you are going to go back to your high school reunion, you're going to go back to your high school reunion. What are the things that you're going to tell your classmates so that you can look like you're successful in their eyes? Right? What are those things that you're going to tell them about? Like, are you going to tell them about maybe family or marriage? Or are you going to tell them about the success that you have in your career? The house that you buy, the houses that you have, the company that you started, or the company you lead. What are those things that you're going to tell them? Because that's what you're measuring your success by. And those are good things. There's nothing wrong with being a successful person and making money or having a company or having kids or all of those things. But they become a bad thing when they are the only thing that you get your success from. And that's what we see in her story. We see that in her story, and it becomes tragic. It's not a happy story. So let's take a dive into Genesis chapter 30. So go ahead and turn open to Genesis chapter 30. It's the beginning of part of the Bible. If you do not have a Bible, and you like to follow along with your Bible, raise your hand nice and high because we have ushers back there. We'd love to get you a Bible, and you can follow along with us. One of the best ways to find out where Genesis is, go to the table of contents, and you can open it up. It'll let you know what page number. Genesis chapter 30. Now, this is partway through Rachel's life. So we're not even hitting the beginning part of it, but we enter in an argument she's having with her husband. So that's cheery, right? So we're coming into this partway through her life, but there's been a struggle with her having children, and just see how this unfolds. So Genesis chapter 30, we're going to take a look at verse 1. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, Jacob is her husband, by the way, she became jealous of her sister, who is his other wife. That's messed up, right? Children of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Where is the source of life coming from? Having children, right? That doesn't put these kids in a good spot, does it? Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Whose fault is it? God's fault. Nice one, dude. That's nice. Verse 3, then she said, "Here is Bilhah, my servant. Sleep with her so she can bear children for me, and I too can build a family through her." So Rachel gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. Check out the name of the kid. Verse 6, then Rachel said, "God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son." Because of this, she named him Vindication. Well, some form of it. It's basically God hears your plea and he's granted you judgment. She is seeing that she's successful because God has given her a child through this other person. Do you picking up on how she's using people for her own success? She's taking this person who's a servant in her household and she doesn't get a choice. She just makes her servant with her husband. This is now another wife for Jacob, right? It's messed up on how she's using people. And this servant is going to have another son. And here's what happens next in verse 7. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, "I have had a great struggle with my sister, and I have won." So she named him Struggle. Yeah, what a great name for your kid, right? And it's connected with Jacob's name. If you were here with us last week, we talked about Jacob and how his name is changed from Jacob, this heel grabber, to the one who fights with God, who wrestles with God and with men and has won. And we hear a phrase of that here, don't we? She's connecting with that name. She's struggling with her sister, and she's winning. How is she winning? Because she's got these kids through this other person. Right? And she can bring them into her family. She's seeing that she's getting the success. And the interesting thing about this, if you continue to read through here, you continue to read this, you see that now there's going to be a battle going on back and forth. Right? Her sister is going to not have kids, so then she's going to take her servant like Rachel did, and now she's going to give him to Jacob, and then they're going to have more kids and things like that. And it's just this big battle, this big infighting, and the kids are caught in the middle of it. There's just this problem that's happening. In fact, she is now going to have, Rachel is going to have children of her own. And listen what happens. We're going to skip down to verse 22. Chapter 30, verse 22. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, "God has taken away my disgrace." So what? Didn't you have kids, but that wasn't good enough? Listen to what she names this son, verse 24. She named him Joseph and said, "May the Lord add to me another son." Joseph's name is having to do with this adding to. But the problem is, what does she mean? What does she mean by this name of Joseph, to add another son? Because you have a couple of kids and now God has added a son, right? Is that what the name means? Or does it mean this isn't enough, I want God to add another one? So answered your prayer, but it's not good enough, so let's just keep building it. This whole thing is about her having the success, this honor, and it's all focused on the kids are the source of that, right? This is where she gets her life from. If she doesn't have kids, she's going to die. She's going to not have life. Well, God does add another son to Rachel. She does conceive, and on a road trip, she's going to give birth. So let's go to chapter 35. So we're in 30, just flip over to 35. And we're going to look at verse 16 and following. And the whole family is moving from one place to another, and she's going to give birth. Listen what happens next. Then they moved on from Bethel, that's the house of God, while they were still some distance from Ephrath. Now, I know it's a funny name. It's going to be later named Bethlehem, and we'll come back to this of what it means. Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having a great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't despair, you have another son." As Rachel breathed her last, for she was dying, she named him the son of my sorrow. Why did she name him son of my sorrow? Her whole life was about having these children that are going to give her this honor. Because look at all the kids I've had. It's going to take away her disgrace. It's going to show that God has vindicated her, is on her side. It's going to show that she has success over her sister, and she's not going to live to see it. The very thing that she was determined and focused on to give her life cost her her life. She lost it. The son of my sorrow. On their way to this place that means to bear. As she wants to bear children in this fruitfulness, they're on their way there and they don't make it. They don't make it there. It's like a perfect object lesson for her life, right? She has this desire to bear these children, to bring her success, and she doesn't reach it. The same is happening in her life. This is the problem. This is the problem that we enter into. When we make this good thing the only thing that can bring us our worth or our success or our life, it can become a bad thing. Now, it doesn't always, right? Let's hear that. But oftentimes, it can be this thing that we never quite reach. It actually takes our life away. Think about this with just children, right? And having children. The whole point for her to have these children was to have the success. And she loses it. She never sees it. I really think this is what Jesus is focusing on as he talks with disciples, people that want to follow him. He knows that people are wired this way. They take a good thing, but then it becomes a bad thing because it's their only thing that gives them life or gives them success. And he wants to warn them as they're going to, if they want to follow him, they got to do something different. So think about that, about wanting something that gives you life and then losing it. Because Jesus talks about it in Luke chapter 9, verse 24. He says, "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and yet lose or forfeit their very soul?" You wrap everything around this one thing that you think is good because it's going to give you life. And you hold so tightly to it that you don't realize that you're missing out on life. It's the wrong thing to focus on. It takes your life away from you. And you just think about this and put this in the context of not just children, because we can, right? What's good is it if you have this desire to have children and that will make you look good in the eyes of others, right? Or even feel good or make you have this success. And yet you end up becoming something else. That's Jesus' point, right? Jesus doesn't look at measuring success by the things we've done, right? Our accomplishments, the way that we can put things up on the shelf, the way we can display our children, or we can display our income, or display our success with all the things we can buy. Jesus doesn't look at measuring what's successful in life by what we have done. He measures it by who we become. That's what he's focused on. Don't lose your very soul, your very life, who you are to be, because you're trying to get this success in other ways. So if we think about that, you become this mother for Rachel. She becomes this mother, and yet she loses any connection with these kids, right? It becomes a sorrowful thing to have this child, and then you don't get to experience the success of that. What a horrible person she's become, right? But we can do that too. We can get so focused on having children and wanting them to be successful that what do we end up becoming? Well, demanding perfectionists, right? Nothing's ever good enough. We continue to push them to be better and better and do everything perfectly because it has a reflection on our own successfulness, rather than becoming a parent that can see these children and now can look at them through the eyes of God and see how God has been such a good parent to us. That's a change in how we become. What is that thing that we become? You can put anything into this slot here, right? I remember going in college. I was in this business class. I don't know why I was in the business class. Don't care about business, but I was in this business class, and they did their introductions on the first day. Just tell us your name and then why you're taking this class. And so one person after another, they basically said some version of the same thing. I'm taking this class because I want to learn how to make a lot of money so I can buy the things that I want, because then I'll be happy. Person after person after person. I want to learn how to make a lot of money so I can buy the things that I want so then I can be happy. What's the good thing? Is it bad to make a lot of money? No, that's a good thing. But it becomes a bad thing when it becomes the only thing that'll make you happy, right? Same thing that Rachel's going through here, just put in a different thing, right? I think about this with students as well, right? What's the good thing that can become a bad thing because it becomes the only thing, right? So think about this in sports, like an athlete. You want to be a great athlete in school, okay? And so you're driving your teammates to do better and better and become better, and you're pushing yourself to become better, and then you guys lose, and you are a bad teammate now, right? Because you've made this good thing become a bad thing because it's the only thing that gives you some kind of success. It reflects on you. That's the thing that can happen to us. This is the thing that Jesus is talking about. He's not showing that what you have done is the way to measure your success. It's about who you become. Who are you becoming? Can we let go of some of these good things? Can we hold them loosely so that we can focus on who we are actually becoming, rather than accomplishing things that seem good in our own eyes and bring our own sense of success? Yeah? Now, we can do that as individuals, but I think we can also do that as a church family. We can focus on a good thing, and it can become a bad thing because now it becomes this only thing. But we can reverse that about who we are actually becoming as a church. And I'm thinking specifically about Pastor Mitch. I would love for Pastor Mitch and his family to stay here. Oh, the things we could do together, right? I've gotten, in this short 4 months, I've gotten to know him and his humor. I've gotten to know him and his sensitivity. And I would love to continue to work alongside him. Oh, the things we could do. We could be so much more. Look at all the stuff we could accomplish. And yet, this is about becoming who God is making Mitch into being. right? Throughout his life, he is becoming this one that's gone from youth to associate pastor to now leading a church in Lancaster, Minnesota. Wow, let's let him become that because we can hold that loosely. What is Cedarbrook going to become as we're able to send him off in that way rather than holding him to ourselves because it brings us more success or because we're nervous if he's not here? Who will replace him, right? We get to become something more, and that's the measure of success. Not about what we have done or what we could do, but who we become in this process. And so I'd love to celebrate Mitch and his family, to be able to send him well. And I know firsthand what that's like, leaving a place that I started and then wanting and desiring to be sent off well. So I'd love to do that and have Pastor Kyle come on up to get ready for some of this mischievousness that we have planned for Mitch. Mitchievousness. Yeah, take it away, okay.